a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And welcome to the Consumer Quarterback Show. Great lineup for you today here. Attorney Jason Kobal going to be in on the phone lines, actually. We're going to talk with Attorney Jason Kobal, kind of update you on things happening in the legal world. And also Mike Murphy, owner Murphy Auto Group, coming up here on the program today. And before we do, a couple of hot listings here. We'd like to feature our real estate properties as part of a way to help our sellers sell faster for more money and get them closed quickly for our sellers. 2907 North Florida Avenue. This is a $2.9 million listing from the Platinum MVP team. We got a commercial building for sale right here in Tampa Bay. Great opportunity, corner lot location, 2907 North Florida Avenue in Tampa. A large warehouse. I believe it's 12,000 square feet. You have office space, retail, storage, also a separate building that's being rented out by a different tenant for around $6,500 a month, I believe. So great opportunity. Financing available as well through Andrew QB, US Commercial and Business Capital as well, one of our show partners from the Consumer Quarterback Show. So you got a great opportunity to own real estate right there in Tampa. And let's take you down south here to Rio de Janeiro. This is in Punta Gorda, 1161 Rio de Janeiro Avenue in Punta Gorda. This is a beautiful home. It's a large home as well. You got a brand new tin roof, steel roof on the building. And this is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,574 square foot home. You have a new metal roof, and has a beautiful layout, great floor plan, and a beautiful pool there, large pool with a spa, granite countertops, great opportunity to own real estate, beautiful palm trees in the yard. And you can see all of our real estate listings at PlatinumCoastalElite.com. Check out PlatinumCoastalElite.com.
Sun is shining, the weather is sweet.
And a quick shout out to Brio Tuscan Grill, the official restaurant partner of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Brio Tuscan Grill, International Plaza Mall. Excellent food, Tuscan-inspired recipes, delicious food. They got great happy hours as well. Went in there a couple weeks back, had a happy hour burger. I think it was like $7 for an awesome burger, man. Really good food. Say hello to Chef Oscar Ramirez and Joseph. He's the general manager. Let him know the real estate quarterback sent you, and take him up on an offer for a free appetizer. They've got some great appetizers over there as well. All right, going to the phone lines now. Jason Kobal, attorney Jason Kobal, Kobal Law. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, thank you, Brandon. Always a pleasure.
Hey, yeah, man. So it's our pleasure to have you as well as a legal analyst here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. What kind of stories are you tracking out there? What's happening in your world?
Well, I was just thinking it's so crazy these days, just a combination, perfect storm with our court system being backed up. We had COVID, where obviously there was no jury trials during COVID, and then immediately after that, not immediately, maybe about a year getting used to things post-COVID, we had the big law change in car accidents where the governor severely limited the rights of people who are hurt in automobile accidents or other negligence claims. And the combination of those two things, because that law took effect when it did, all the attorneys, they actually tried to file as many complaints as they can under the old law, because the day the new law kicked in, the old law then is no more, and all cases filed after that date are under the new law. And the new law is so limited for people that are injured that way that thousands and thousands of lawyers filed complaints to meet the deadline, and now the court system's just more backed up than ever.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's an interesting. So how many, do you have any idea of how many cases that got filed that maybe?
Yep, I'm glad you asked that. It was 90,000 cases were filed in the state by the cutoff. So all at once, 90,000, it's hard for the system. It was backed up as it was because of COVID. But that 90,000 all at one time, that overwhelmed the system. So it's changed the way those cases operate in so many ways.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting, man. The courts are being flooded in a lot of the different. I've heard stories too about the immigration law courts being backed up significantly. But you focus more on workers' comp, injured workers, and those types of cases.
Yep, but if I could add, you made a good point about the immigration. I actually heard a point today about that I never thought of, and it's scary. But it's never been worse. Obviously, this is the first time we ever had a president that is just not trying to secure our border. Did away with President Trump's policies that were working at the border. I heard this morning the ratio to illegals to agents at Eagle Point, Texas, right now, or Eagle Pass, Texas, is 200-1. Illegals to agents. That's just absurd. You can't work like that. But the point I heard I wanted to share with the listeners is this morning. It's actually probably going to get worse and worse and worse because the illegals that are coming here, they know that once Trump wins, if Trump wins, which right now it looks he's doing very well in all the swing states, it looks very likely.
Right.
They know that that's it. He's gonna put a stop to that and enforce the border and probably shut it down completely. So they know they have from now until then to get in freely, and they're going to be coming more and more until Election Day is what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening to Tucker Carlson's show. He had Alex Jones on the other day, and he was mentioning how at some point, when do we say that's enough? Enough is enough. And you have Texas, for example, state governments say, hey, that's it, man. We're going to form our own. And I think I did see where Texas had filed a new law, and because there's got to be some enforcement. We can't continue to.
That's another great point. And of course, the mainstream media always defends our political establishment. They're giving the governor a hard time in Texas because, it's tough. That's probably going to be deemed unconstitutional because the Constitution puts protecting our border in charge of our federal government. But what are we supposed to do when the president isn't protecting our border and left them no choice? So I'm glad that the governor had the guts and fortitude to do that.
Yeah, and I think it reminded me of what Tucker said. Tucker said he's actually criminal. It's criminal what he's doing. We're being run by a criminal regime allowing these things to happen. And it's not fair for ordinary, citizens, taxpayers. Their kids are being killed from fentanyl. You have, record numbers of gang violence, homelessness. I just did a story in yesterday's show. The record numbers of homelessness now in the United States is the highest on record since they started keeping stats back in 2007 at 653,000 Americans that are living, homelessness on the street. So you've got all these major issues happening, and it's at some point it's got to become traitorous to where you say, hey, we've got to defend our own borders. Yep,
and I don't know if it's because the mainstream media, do they have to be covering a story for people to be interested? I have no idea because, they ignore the border issue for the most part. But it does seem criminal, and it's unbelievable that we're just allowing it to happen, particularly when there's Hamas now announced after October 7th that they want to come over and take advantage of our southwestern border and come over and cause trouble here. If you don't need a wake-up call, that should give it to you. I'm sorry, if you do need a wake-up call, that should be the one to give it to you. But it's really terrible. But my only hope is, thankfully, for the first time that I can remember, all the swing states at this point are leaning Trump, which is huge. So I just hope it stays like that. But, they're coming after him with everything they got.
Yeah, if you just joined us, we're talking with attorney Jason Kobal. He's a legal analyst here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. And, Jason, did you happen to see that movie that Michelle and Barack Obama had put out? Did you happen to watch that one?
Thankfully, no, thankfully I didn't. My wife she asked me, do you want to watch a movie with Julia Roberts, I think. And I kind of like her movies. I was thinking about it, and luckily I didn't because then I heard, the background story as far as, what was who did it and what was it about. And I'm glad I missed that one.
It's pretty telling though, because there's something to the way that this movie rolled out and what it is supposed to be a prelude to, of course, going into an election year when we know that something's going to happen. We have this gut feeling like, there's going to be something happen, whether it's an EMP, terrorist attack. We as you mentioned, we have the southern border open. Anybody's coming through there. But the movie just had some very crazy stuff. It had some racist lines in there about can't trust white people. It was just a very ridiculous. But it just shows you, though, and it had Kevin Bacon, it had a couple others, but it was an interesting play because it's almost a foreshadow of what they're planning, of what the potential is, and it broke it down into three different steps. So step one is you cause confusion, you cause this. Everybody lost their cell phones, they couldn't text, everybody lost communication. So now you're isolated, right? So it's like isolation. And then step two was disinformation. They had thousands of drones dropping these little leaflets and flyers all over the roads, and it looked like it was something from Arabic language. So it's like misinformation because you don't even know who you're at war with at that point, right? Who's this? Where's this flyer coming from? And then the third step is they said it's basically where people just turn on themselves. You have your own civil war. So in essence they're predicting that's and then now that opens that opens it up for the World Economic Forum to come in and live in that world where you will own nothing and be happy. You're going to rent everything you have. Uber's going to own all the cars. The big hedge funds are going to own all the houses. But it's, pretty crazy to think. But, there's been a lot of these so-called conspiracy theories coming true lately, Jason.
Yeah, I never would have believed that could be possible but for the COVID experience. I mean, the freedom just got flipped upside down. And it was a tough situation, and it was, a first for all of us, and we dealt with it the way we did. But obviously now, in hindsight, 2020, I definitely think we made a lot of mistakes, and one of which is too much power to the government. And but after seeing how much the power was abused during COVID, anything is possible, and that wouldn't surprise me. That's scary, but it's definitely possible the way things have gone.
Yeah, it sure is. So I want to come up next here on a clip from Senator Ted Cruz's podcast. He just recently had Comer on, who's heading up the investigation. So I want to talk about that, and then more about just local law. What are you doing locally, and who are you helping out? Who are you looking to help out here coming up? So I want to take a quick break there, and then come back more with Attorney Jason Kobal. I've got this clip we're going to play talking about the monies that were paid from or to AmeriCorp Health, which was the hooker company that's associated with the president's son. So we're going to play that clip. It's an interesting tape from the Senator Ted Cruz podcast, and we're also going to talk more with Attorney Jason Kobal about local law, things that he's seeing here locally, and how he might be able to help you. Check us out online at Brandon Rhymes 1 at CQB Show, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel Brandon Rhymes Realty. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 727-263-3707. Online at consumerqb.com.
Dennis Prager here for Brandon and Lindsay Rhymes, owners of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams. Buying, selling, investing in real estate, their nationwide Keller Williams network makes them the best team to work with. Sellers, have your property featured live on air, creating multiple offers. Buyers, leverage a unique system that gets your offer accepted, never overlooked. Call or text 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550, or consumerqb.com.
I want to give a special thanks to Satellite Phone Store. They just hooked me up with this beautiful satellite phone, and it's a gorgeous phone. It's a great device. It's a safety device as well. Think about it. If you're out on the boat 40, 50 miles out, maybe you're going hunting or you're going hiking in the woods somewhere, you run out of cell phone service, or who knows, maybe a possible terrorist attack. It's not like our politicians aren't entrenched in all this stuff going on overseas, all over the place, all over the world. Could be a terrorist attack. They could attack the power grid. They could attack the cell phones. Who knows what they're going to attack next. Sat123.com/REQB. Sat for satellite. Sat123.com/REQB, like real estate quarterback.
You're listening to the Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, Brandon Rhymes here in studio. We're going to be talking with attorney Jason Kobal here in just a moment. Before we do, just a hot listing here. We'll let you know about a property at 1301 Rowan Tree Drive in Dover. We have a large home. This is a corner lot location. 5 bedrooms, 3 bath, 3-car garage, 4,223 square feet on Rowan Tree Drive in Dover, Florida, Hillsborough County. Great opportunity to own real estate. You have hardwood flooring, high ceilings, elegant granite countertops, wood cabinetry, stainless steel appliances, and more. Beautiful home, conveniently accessed as well here in Tampa Bay, 1301 Rowan Tree Drive, Dover, Florida. One of our hot listings here from the Platinum MVP team. 7300 Shoreline Boulevard. This one is a kind of a unique property. It's a commercial play. It's a waterfront property, 7300 Shoreline Boulevard in Weeki Wachee, Florida. Commercial property with residential lots included. 5 fully furnished waterfront suites, all kayaks and furnishings included. This one's situated 2 lots in a picturesque and serene location on the river. So you have access to the Gulf of Mexico, Weeki Wachee Springs, close to Pine Island Beach, community of local restaurants and bars. Great opportunity to own real estate here in Tampa Bay. And you can see all of our real estate listings at PlatinumCoastalElite.com. Check out PlatinumCoastalElite.com.
Try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road.
All right, Jason Kobal, I wanted to get to this quick this clip here that I clipped out, Ted Cruz podcast. We're going to play that, and I'm going to get your reaction from it.
To really get into the substance, and a lot has been happening lately. We just had Hunter Biden defy a congressional subpoena. We just had the full House of Representatives vote to authorize formally the impeachment inquiry. You're sending your investigative team on the road. Why don't we start by tell us about that?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of these people that we've asked for interviews and depositions, they're trying to use the holiday as an excuse why they can't come in and do it. So we decided we would make it more convenient on them and send our staff to depose them or interview them in their home area. So the first one we're doing is with the owner of AmeriCorps Health. And AmeriCorps Health was the healthcare company where James Biden, the president's brother, approached them because he heard they were financially distressed and said that because he's a Biden and because of his brother's contacts in the Middle East, that he could help them acquire all the capital they needed to get back on their feet from the Middle East. But they were going to have to pay Jim Biden first. And they gave him $600,000. And by all accounts, Jim Biden completely defrauded AmeriCorps Health. He never provided any funding or anything else. But what's ironic about this for Joe Biden, not only was that a pure example of influence peddling, Joe Biden received the last payment from AmeriCorps Health. They sent a check to Jim Biden for $200,000 the exact same day that Jim Biden received that $200,000 check from AmeriCorps Health. They wrote Joe Biden a check for the exact same amount, $200,000. So that was the first example of evidence that we found where Joe Biden directly benefited from the Biden family influence peddling.
So, Jason, your reaction?
Well, you hear the mainstream media talk about there's no evidence tying Biden. There's clearly a lot of evidence at this point. There's no doubt that there's pay-for-play that happened and millions of dollars, transferred hands and taxes were not paid. But the House just needs to continue doing what they're doing, and I just hope they uncover it all because we can't have a compromised president.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had one for a long time, and it goes back to the root of what we were just talking about with the southern border. I mean, just one of the major issues there. You got the money being funneled through Ukraine for Burisma and some of these other areas of, basically just mismanagement of our country, our great country. I think about all the veterans. I think about the people that really, stormed the beaches of Normandy and fought and gave up life and limb. And many family members of our listeners and audience that, what would they say? What would they say looking at this right now and just seeing where our country's gotten? It's pretty sad.
I have a personal opinion on that. I actually feel that I remember my grandparents telling me stories from that era. They say the greatest generation and the sacrifices they made, just the storming the beaches and whatnot. I think that the further we are away from that in time, like the newer generation, they don't have anybody that experienced that firsthand like we did growing up hearing that from our grandparents and our elders. Right. I think that matters. And the further away we are from that, I feel that we are as a united nation. But yeah, I know what my grandparents would be thinking about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's more about TikTok and the mismanagement or the misinformation that they're getting on TikTok, and that's why there's so much Jewish sentiment in this country right now. I want to take the last couple of minutes here, Jason, and just kind of zero in a little bit here locally. Can you give us a recent success story, or what are you doing in the legal profession here locally that may be able to help our audience?
Absolutely. Nowadays, there's a big run now that they're trying to get people back to the office, and I agree. I think it's much better to have people working, in an office than at home. However, there's a lot more remote work than ever. A lot of people fail to realize if your employer allows you to work from home, then that is your new office space. So if you're working from home and you happen to trip over something and get injured, that's a workers' comp case. It may not seem like it because you're at home, but it is because your employer allowed you to work there. So if you're working remotely and you had any injury whatsoever during your work hours, give me a call. You might be surprised that it could be workers' comp.
Wow, that's interesting. So the liability is still going to be extended to the employer if they're being allowed to work at home. That's wow.
As long as the employee was in the course and scope of their employment at the time of the accident, then that is workers' comp. And if it happens to be in your house because your employer allowed you to work there, then that's no different than if it was at your place of employment.
And Jason, tell me about some of the billing. I know when you look at medical billing, it seems like it's sometimes you get bills and you're like, wait, what was this? And you hear the stories about $100 aspirin and things like that. Tell me a little bit about the medical billing too.
Oh, it drives me crazy. It is so bad, and people really don't realize it until it happens to you or you dig into it like I have in handling these cases. They do not care. They bill everybody. They'll bill health insurance when they know that it shouldn't. They'll bill the person. They'll bill the carrier. It's unbelievable. All they care about is making money any way possible. So if you go to the hospital and you are getting bills, you got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, because I would say on an average day, just looking at bills that my clients submit to me, I'd say there's usually an error on at least 40 to 50% of them. And it's unbelievable. Just billing for something that didn't even get recommended or never happened. It happens all the time. So you got to really look, because, you don't even think twice about it. Your health insurance pays it, and you pay what your portion is of the copay. But, in the long run, that hurts the system, and that's fraud. And nobody should be paying for anything that isn't their responsibility to pay.
Yeah, the fraud and hurts the system, and we saw that happen majorly with the insurance industry in the state of Florida. Caused major problems.
Definitely, and it's amazing how you don't realize it, but when everybody's doing that, and it adds up. The next thing you know, that changes the whole system. Just like for injured workers, there were so many goofballs out there committing fraud and ruin it for the good people.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Jason, how do you want people to find you?
Either call the show or TampaWorkCompLaw.com on my website.
TampaWorkCompLaw.com. You can find them online as well at ConsumerQB.com. All of Attorney Jason Kobal's information there. Longtime friend of the show and legal analyst, and can help you personal injury law, workers' comp, and others as well. Jason, thanks a lot. Appreciate you calling in.
Thanks, Brandon. Awesome. Bye.
All right, my pleasure. Taking a quick break, coming back with Mike Murphy, Murphy Auto Group, going to be in studio. We're going to catch up with him on all things dealing with the insurance, or the auto industry, that is. Murphy Auto Group coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, ConsumerQB.com.
Thanks for listening to My Daddy's Show. Please make sure to send him all of your real estate deals and subscribe to the Consumer Quarterback Show podcast on iTunes and Spotify.